Hey guys, Krzysztof the Polish Geek, and welcome to another review of a Disney live-action remake, Lilo and Stitch. And what I think of it, the first thing I would say is that I've only seen like the original animated Lilo and Stitch like very few times actually. Back when it came out in theaters, I was like an 8-year-old kid. I don't exactly remember. I think it came out like 2022, so. Yeah, I think I was around 7 and 8, not sure exactly, but I remember seeing it then in theaters and then later seeing it like few years later one more time and then never ever again. So it's been many years since I've seen the original. I did remember bits and pieces because newsflash, after seeing the live action one, I did rewatch on Disney Plus the original, so we will get to that soon, but while I was watching it, it's been many years since I've seen the original, and even then I only seen it a few times. I remembered like only bits and pieces really from the original, and as upon rewatching I realized how much I did not remember actually. So what do I think of this live action Lilo and Stitch? Well, I thought it's another pointless Disney live action remake. As I was watching it, I was ready to say, this is seemingly one of the more harmless live action remakes. It's not all bad, some of the things are quite good actually, such as the actresses that played Lilo and her older sister, I thought were really good picks. That's what I really liked, and I also really liked and I also thought the characters were pretty likable, because even if the story of an experimental alien from space coming to Earth and befriending a little girl, that sounds a pretty cliche story, but important thing is, a key to a cliche story being great is likable characters. That's really a big key to make, because even the most cliche story can become excellent if the characters are really likable. Now I could use my personal go-to favorite example for that, one of my favorite animated movies of all time. I already talked about it actually. I gave the whole you should be watching treatment, Sword of the Stranger. Like, you can't say the story is particularly innovative or groundbreaking, but because the characters are so likable, it ends up being one of my favorite animated movies of all time, because the key to making a cliche story excellent, as I said, are compelling and likable characters. That's really it. And I thought that the characters Lilo and Stitch, especially Stitch, Lilo, and her sister, were all pretty likable, and that really saved the movie from being a complete bore and trash for me. But then, upon rewatching the original, which I decided to watch after I seen the live action remake, I realized that how much more heart the original animated movie has actually. Like, Lilo was actually a pretty likable little girl in the live action remake, but in the original she's just so much better and more fleshed out character. Like, also whole her life of what it was like before meeting Stitch is also very well fleshed out, because like, even though the exposition in the live action remake takes such a long time, it's like almost feels like whole half of the movie for exposition before she finally befriends Stitch, while in the original animated one it takes like only like 10 minutes, and yet it does such a much better job of fleshing out the whole situation between Lilo and her older sister, and that Lilo is considered a weird child and isn't liked among her peers. This is also well fleshed out, while the live action remake, even though it's much a longer exposition, I wouldn't say it really has done a particularly good job at fleshing out. Like, in the original anime you can see that Lilo is lonely, she doesn't have any friends even though she's a really nice girl. You can't really see that in the live action remake. And also, another thing I noticed is that the main villain, Captain Gauntu, has been completely cut out from the remake. Which, like, I don't know why. I mean, I guess I understand that it's mostly likely due to budget reasons, but Disney is a rich company, so I don't see why they wouldn't really have much of a budget. But also, that also made me realize how much I think Lilo and Stitch is a perfect example of a movie that's not suited really for live action in many ways, especially when the aliens dress as humans, because the original animated one, they dress as humans, but even though you can tell that they are aliens, you kind of like go with granted and the fact that everyone thinks they're human. But in some ways it's actually really funny how you can totally tell that they're human, but I mean, you can totally tell that they're not human, they're aliens, and yet no one else in the movie notices. But it's actually kind of hilarious. But for pragmatic reasons, in the live action, it's just that they are able to just turn themselves human, which you could argue were just better for live action. But considering Lilo and Stitch in a lot of ways a comedy movie, I actually guess like just had them having to dress as aliens and then still everyone think they're human could actually be kind of hilarious, even if a little too obvious, but still. And another thing I have to talk about, and this is related to the ending, but we'll get to the ending soon. The first thing I have to talk about is that one of the best things about the original animated movie is, because what I did like in this one as I was watching it, I really liked the sisterly dynamic between Lilo and her older sisters. Basically that their parents have died, that now Lilo's older sister tries to have custody of Lilo because there's like a big age gap between them. And I remember when I was a little kid seeing the original in theaters, I actually literally thought that this was Lilo's mom, and I was confused, like, why is she calling her sister? Because I was really literally convinced that it was her mom. But now that I'm older, it makes perfect sense that it's just like an older sister, a much older sister, trying to get custody of her little sister to take care of her. And really, I thought that their sisterly dynamic was very well done, although in the animated one it was even better as I watched it. And here's what we're coming to another big gripe of the movie, the ending. Because while I do think that you can argue the ending is more realistic here than in the original. Well, in the original it's very happily ever after ending, but it doesn't matter. Sometimes, especially in a story like that, a happily ever after ending is really what you need, because, spoiler alert, gigantic spoiler alert, although I doubt many people will see this movie, but because here, Lilo's older sister actually loses custody of Lilo, and then she chooses to go to college, which I guess could be explained in that going to college is her dream and she deserves to have her own life. So in some ways it makes perfect sense. But at the same time, on the other hand, the fact that as sisters they love each other more than anything and that they only have each other is really one of the key points about the whole story. So really the ending that now they're closer than ever and is really much better fit for this story. Again, as I said, sure, you can argue that the ending in the live action remake is more realistic, but on the other hand, the ending in the original animated one is far more fitting to what the story is telling, because really the sisterly love and dynamic is like one of the true hearts and spirits of the whole movie. So it makes for a much better payoff. Overall, as I said, when I watched the live action remake, I thought, forgettable, but overall one of the more harmless Disney live action remakes. But I rewatched the original animated one, which I haven't seen, as I said, in many years right after, and then I realized no, the original animated one has way more heart, way more soul, way more passion, and certainly it's just a way more heartful movie. So no, I'm gonna add Lilo and Stitch to another pointless live action remakes. Maybe not necessarily one of the worst ones, it's certainly better than Snow White this year, but overall the animated one is again much better, no surprise there. So thank you guys for checking out this review. Press the like button, please subscribe to this channel, and I will talk to you soon in another video. Talk to you then, bye.